Hey guys, what's up? A little bit different content for today. We're actually going to be analyzing the overlays from major tournaments over the past year. This was recommended to me in a YouTube content. I think it's actually something kind of cool to look back on, but also see the ones that have done it really well and the ones who have tried really hard and it just didn't stack up. I want to state that none of this is to be putting down on people who've made these overlays, but it's to kind of look at them as objectively as I can, why it can really add to a tournament and professionalism, how it's designed, and how we've gone through the year. I obviously am not going to show from every like major tournament we've seen this year because you see a formula in a lot of them. There are kind of like three main formats we're going to end up seeing, which is where you kind of have a lot going on, and it's going to be what our first one's showing with a lot of webcams and stuff on the sides and everything. And this one I feel is the most volatile. It's either really good or it's really bad. The very simplistic styles, which is actually really easy to get wrong, and then what I'm calling our like VGBC or Video Game Boot Camp, their like traditional overlay, because them and 2GG to an extent also uses that. And we'll see them kind of just repeat that formula, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. And I have everything set up into four categories: either best, good, it's all right, but I'd like changes, and straight up bad. The best have little to no problems. Good, I'm happy with the layout, but I could come up with a complaint or two if I need to. All right is I'd like stuff really changed. I didn't enjoy the layout during the tournament, and then bad is just it should be scrapped and worked on something else because it's either not professional or very impactful to the viewing experience. So we're going to start off what I have is the best overlay of the year, and it's Frostbite. I don't think, if anyone's watched this, I don't think anyone would think this is surprising. When you look at it, it's got everything you need, and stuff that I don't think you necessarily need, but it fits in really well. Like, I'm usually not someone who cares too much about having the nationalities in, but having the rippled flags, a little transparent is really nice. A spot for sponsorship logos, but also it doesn't feel too empty if it's not there. I've seen tournaments try to do this and then they'll put just like a smash ball when the person doesn't have a sponsor, and that usually just feels kind of strange, but here it doesn't matter that there's nothing. The full character icons, which sometimes are good, sometimes are bad, but this size and being black and white really helps the entire aesthetic of it. Player cams, a little bit too big for my taste, but I think are really good for having all of the crowd right behind them and being able to see their reaction all the time, and you don't have to rely on camera switches right when matches to end to be able to get responses and everything, and during games being able to see their reactions, like taking stocks or cool things, or like meditating. I really enjoy webcams having them, but I think they're not always done super right or the right size. And then the bottom of it, while if you look at it, there is a lot of empty space between the player names and the Frostbite logo, it all feels full because of how it's designed. The scorecards are big enough. Nothing feels too small where it's like, all right, you're trying to squeeze something in while making it not too impactful. Everything feels like it's got enough room to breathe. My really only complaint is you can make the side smaller and the webcam smaller and have more of the game being shown, because I really don't like seeing the game window be decreased and smaller because it usually impacts it negatively, but here I'm totally okay with it. And then the only other one I have in best is what we see at both PAX arenas, and it's just this very simplistic style. You have the player name and the little open spots for the set count. It's right next to the icons and the percent where you're most likely going to be looking down there most of the time. I feel like it's very hard to get this right because if you start covering up something in just the wrong way, it can look really bad, and we'll see that later. But this is perfect. It gives you the two most important parts. It's you know where you are in the set and you know who's playing. All the other information, while it can be really good knowing, oh, this is grand finals or other tags, I do believe they should have their sponsor tags down there. That's my really only complaint about this one. I love this. This is so good, and I'm glad that they stuck with the format through the year. They did not need to change it at all. So let's get on to the good. We're going to start off with Smash and Splash 3. This one is so close to being really good. My problem is the Smash and Splash logo at the top just doesn't really fit. Especially when you have the like actual Smash and Splash like Smash Bros logo at the bottom. It feels like you're kind of hitting my head at the top. I feel the player cams are a little oddly sized, but that's just used to being more of a 16 by 9 or 4 by 3 aspect ratio is what we usually see on them, and seeing them actually be like squares is kind of strange. Scorecards a little small, but you get to add the nationality, you have the player sponsors in, and you have where it is in the tournament and their names and everything. Besides that, it's a really clean logo. I think you just, personal preference, I think you change the webcams, but I don't think that detracts from it objectively. I think you make kind of everything at the bottom just a little bit bigger. The problem with that is then you start to actually run into the player stock icons. So fixing that's very difficult, but I think it still sits in a good spot. Again, this is the good category. I really like these overlays, but it's easier to be nitpicky about these than the best. Here's our first example of the video game bootcamp and like 2GGC type of overlay, which you'll see at most of their events. You have your logo at the top center, and this basically bar across the top that's going to tell you basically what you need to know, who's playing. Sometimes it'll include the 3 out of 5 grand finals, where like it's Smash 4 singles top 8, which is a little redundant because you already know with grand finals and you obviously know what game it is. But I don't think it's that bad. You have the transparent sponsors flickering through on the top left in a spot that doesn't matter to interfering with the gameplay, and we'll see that in a lot of overlays, and I think that's the one thing that's been locked down, and it's really good, and that does not need to change for any overlay. But yeah, very simplistic, got everything you really need to know, and it's not too big where you're feeling you're getting like suffocated from the top down. And then here's 2GG's kind of their interpretation of it. My biggest problem with this one is all of it doesn't feel as clean as what we usually see with the VG Bootcamp logos at the top, because I usually feel like theirs are more aesthetically pleasing, because the Civil War logo here is just a little bit too big, and the Twitter handles under the names just feel a little off. That's probably because they're like dim in comparison, and I also feel like the bottom bar isn't receiving as much I don't want to say attention, because obviously you want to be looking more so at the names than their handles, but it just feels a little off. And also the player cams are a little bit too big. I realized while going over a lot of these overlays that I really prefer when they're basically the size of from the end of the portrait of the character to about the end of their series icon. So it'd be the left of Alamar's picture to almost the end of his flower. When we see that DeBuzz's webcam is just a little bit bigger than that, I realize when they're about that size, and I believe I have one example that has like the exact size that I like, it feels the best, because even though I know I don't need to know what's going on behind DeBuzz's webcam in the Smash 4 footage, it still feels a little intrusive. And I like that they have their little powered by at the bottom too. That kind of makes it, I think overlays can make it seem a little bit more professional, which I think you kind of lack a little bit with the PAX ones that I complimented having best. And these little touches at the bottom that kind of like pop up a little bit, I think are really nice, but that's due to personal preference. Here's one that I think that was almost perfect, and it's Frame Perfect Series 2. I love their aesthetic at the top. The colors match really well. How they have the set counts. It's, I want to say dynamic, and it also feels better because it's not just the same thing that I'm seeing for every like video game bootcamp stream or 2GGC, which is kind of, they run and stream the like biggest and best tournament, so I'm eventually going to get tired of it no matter how good it is, most likely. But this one's a really cool interpretation on the tried and true. Player cams, again, are a little weird because they're like the squares and not rectangles. And I feel like I'm looking at this on a 19-inch monitor, and it's still like really small for like North Florida and South Florida and their like Twitter handles. And I just feel like they're trying to put too much information there. Like if you want the Twitter handles, those could definitely have gone under the names at the top, and designed correctly could have still looked really well. And I don't think you necessarily need the region tag either. But I like that they have their Twitter handle as just specifically like the event name, and it's easy to put up there, and it doesn't feel like intrusive, like they're throwing something at you, which I believe I have in another one later that we'll talk about. And this is actually one that I have barely in the good, but it should be in the all right, I believe. is this is for Midwest Mayhem Saga. And obviously this is a lot longer time ago. We've moved on from this point, but I wanted to note about it because looking at the top, it's just a not very clean logo. Or I shouldn't say logo, just entire bar at the top describing all of it. It's kind of just, here's this general shape we're going for. All right, we want to have stuff in black text and white text, and then we can do red. So since we're going to do red, let's put red behind so you can do black. And there's no really boundaries for like where is the exact space that the game numbers or game count should be, or their Twitter handles. It just doesn't feel very clean, and that's my biggest problem with it. And then the last of the good category, which is I think the only other one that has this style of Frostbite that does well, and it's Greninja Saga, where you have the game window is kind of reduced a little bit to have all of this going on around the sides. And I feel like character icons are a little bit too big. I like what they're trying to do with the flags, but I don't think they fit as well when your entire background has to be blue. It worked a lot better with Frostbite where it was white, so it doesn't feel like as contrasting. Like the Canadian flag to me just doesn't look super clean. And you also, I understand you have your sponsors rolling on the sides of the webcams there, but it still feels like a lot of unused space. And this is one of those events where I probably would have been really okay with what they have as the logo at the bottom just being at the top, and you size down Greninja a little bit. Because this is one that I feel like it starts to kind of hurt because you've reduced the gameplay window. But overall, still pretty solid, just a little bit intrusive and claustrophobic from all angles. But that finishes up our good ones. So now we go to the ones that are all right, that really could use some, or that could use some work. First off, we have Genesis Saga, another event that is right at the start of the year. And it's just another one where at the top, it's just not very professional. I don't like the number or the font used for top 48 winners and the numbers, which I believe are the same font. And you also kind of just have this black strip that stuff gets pasted on. And also because you don't have the ats, you don't know why the names are there twice. This was taken from a specific match, so this might have been one of the times where they didn't have the at alongside of it. But it just doesn't look clean, and it looks like you're trying to provide me with too much information that doesn't need to be there, because maybe I don't know that those are Twitter handles. Next up, we have Battle of BC 2. I just really don't like the top part of how it's set up. There's just so much room for the names, and then you even have the like player icons, which I'm in a weird spot because I used to really like player icons, but I feel like most of the time they actually detract from it. I feel like when you have an overlay that is not in the middle of the gameplay, where it is you have a overlay like Frostbite or something, it works a little bit better there when it's farther away and their names are not in the gameplay, whereas these are like right at the top in the gameplay. So I don't particularly enjoy that. I much would have preferred like nationality flags, even though that's something I don't like either. I just don't think the overlay personally is pleasing to look at, which could just be a personal preference choice, which is why I want to state it so much. But it just feels like a lot of stuff is, or the bottom is a little bit slapped together. I don't really like the webcams. I don't know. I'm just really not feeling most of this when I look at it. And I remember watching this tournament when it was happening and was like, this overlay doesn't feel super solid to me. Another one that's just all right is B7. We see that they are trying to go for the easy style of the VGBC and 2GG1, but I feel like there's just too little. Like their logo is actually too small in my opinion, and I think the score number cards, they're little trapezoid. I feel like that's the right word, but it might be wrong. I wish those were actually a little bit closer. I feel like a smaller slit in between would work well, but I don't like the red fading into the nationality flags, even though I think tournaments like this, it's important to have the nationality flags for Europe tournaments. And again, another spot where I really don't like the character icons, because now you're just impeding the flag itself. Yeah, this one is going in between the simplistic and the like traditional style, and I feel like it didn't achieve either of them well enough. So we're gonna go into another one that's pretty. It's trying to emulate. It seems to me, the pack style, and you're cutting off at the bottom too much of what's going on. I understand going for the symmetry with the scores, having the game count, and then on the other side you have your character, but not even like a couple inches away is the stock icon that is what you're putting down there. And it just doesn't, you do not need to have that extra stock icon down there. I like how they've incorporated the logos, but I feel like since they're this small, you need to still be putting them in front of their name. Like it should be Misfits Larry Lur and Immortals Anti. These people who aren't super familiar with the scene or anything won't get much out of it. And as a sponsor, I would like to still have that to be like, oh, what is like IMT or Misfits is like MSF maybe. But I would know that if it was put here. And then you have your grand finals best of 5. Like I'd almost rather that be at the bottom with everything. But then again, I wouldn't, because you're cutting really into that space that's between the character and their percent and then their stock icons. And like you can even see under Anti's a little bit to the left, like the red part of like the background is peeking under it, and that just doesn't look good. They tried for simplicity's sake, but I feel like they went too far trying to make things look too good and not considering like, here's what we need, we got it, all right, we're done. And I feel like here at DreamHack Montreal, we actually see the exact same problem where they're doing, like, you have the stock icons really close. You kind of have that symmetry thing going on. They do, okay, Misfits is MSF. They do have that, which I like more than the logos. But again, exact same problems. I really don't want to harp on this one too long because it's almost the same thing. And that's actually it for all of our all right ones, but that need a lot of work. So we're going to go on to the bad, and I have 4 of these. And actually, a lot of these share basically the same format. So first up, DreamHack Austin. There is so much wasted space that you're doing nothing with. If you make TSM 0 the size of what you have for the set count, his nationality flag, and the Lucina picture, and then you do almost exactly what Frostbite did. You use that entire left side to be able to put, if you want to put the character, if you want to put the nationality, if you want to put like anything else, use that space. I'd much rather you overlay your webcams in the bottom left and right corners and it not be super professional. As we saw on like Battle of BCs 2, I felt like the webcam still felt a little like out of place and jarring to the experience. This is just, you almost have nothing going for you here. Because you just have reduced the gameplay and you haven't given the players anything back. This one is actually a unique take, and I kind of like the attempt with it at KTAR 20. I think it's really bad for a lot of reasons. One, because I feel like you're still not using the space that you have shrunk the gameplay down for that well. I really don't like all of the things in the bottom right that is like 8-way run TV. I feel like that's information that can be put in the between games scene where you have like the full player cam, because if you don't know, they're actually just, they've split one camera that's recording both Tweak and Zero, I believe. So you can have that, your commentator cam, and you can have all of that in between every game if your stream person's on top of it. Your set count feels really out of place being gray. The purple fading into the character icons feels very strange, and I don't know why you need them there. Especially because, like, you have, like, the O and 0 going into Diddy's picture, and you actually have Phoenix 1 going over Cloud's sword. Not to mention, I think the webcams, this is probably the worst aspect ratio I've seen, and I understand if they were just trying to cut one webcam and this is the best you can do, but at that point, I'd just rather not have one. Or you do one webcam, like, maybe in the center between Cloud and Diddy. I don't think Smash 4's really ever explored a single webcam, and I know it's a lot harder than Melee's because we've seen that work really well with Evo. Something else besides this, because there's so much wasted space, the webcams are not ideal and very small. And there's still some small ones that work, but I don't believe these do. And you have so much going on the bottom. And I wish there was just like a KTAR with like 2 X's under it for KTAR 20 as your logo up top near like grand finals, and then you kind of just get rid of this bottom part. Because this is another tournament I believe that is like only Smash 4, so there's almost no reason to even have that at Smash Bros for Wii U. I understand that that is not there because to be like, yeah, make sure you know that this isn't Melee like most people watching it are. It's for the people who don't know. But I don't think it's worth it in this overlays case. Low tier cities 5. I want to slowly come around to this one, but I'm having a lot of trouble. I do like that they have who's on commentary, but I feel like that's something, again, that doesn't need to be put there at all times. While I do want commentators to get more exposure and their names to be put out there, so if you don't know who it is, they don't have to repeat after every game like, I am TK Breezy, I am the Phenomenal EE sort of thing. But between every game, you have so much room to work with that. Especially if your stream person is on top of it, you can like maximize that time. I don't like this background that they've got going. That's just like the silhouette of the Smash characters. It's a cool background for a computer, not a stream overlay. It might be better than just like an all black background, but I can't even say that for sure. I do like the logo that they've got going on the top left. But it messes with symmetry of it because even with the commentary thing in the top right, it still feels very off. I don't know why you need these player icons or character icons above the players when it's so close to their characters and these are on the right side. These are helpful if you ever have like characters or players on the opposite sides, like if Tweak was being shown on the right when he's under Diddy Kong, then I think it can help. But at top 8 level at big streams, that usually almost never happens. Webcam size is actually fine, but you just have so much space not being used also at the bottom, not to mention on the sides, and everything's just like kind of small. And like I kind of like the simplistic scoreboard that they have going on, but you kind of got to reduce the size and get what's going off, or get off what's going on the sides here. And I know as you like slim the screen, you're obviously opening up room on all sides, but I feel like you kind of just have to go back to the drawing board on this to fill your space in a different way if you are accepting that you're going to have the space. So now we're going to go to what I think has had probably the worst overlay for any major tournament that I was looking through this year, and that is Momocon. There is no distinct outline on any of it to separate it from just being like, all right, we stuck this element in OBS and it's just sitting there. Because don't get me wrong, there are sometimes where it's outlined with like, just like, all right, there's a little bit of white around it. Like I think it was Battle of BC2. I didn't really like it. And I don't mean to harp on that one too bad because I don't think that overlay was that bad. But I think it easily expresses my problems with it. Whereas this, you have no outline on the gameplay. You have your sponsors going on in the top left, so you have no symmetry on the right to like make this overlay feel balanced. You have all of this stuff going on. I don't need to know it's being streamed by Smash Studios because I'm most likely either watching it on your YouTube channel or I'm watching it on your Twitch channel. If you were putting like your Twitter handle and then your YouTube channel and stuff in the in-between screens, I understand because I don't know that information. I should know that for sure. Unless I'm like watching off of a friend, like off their computer and I just don't know. But again, that is so unlikely that does not need to be there. You have so much going on, and why are the names of the players so small? Like you could make that big enough to fit, and I understand that it's most likely because they want to keep it the same font size because Fatality's name, as you can see, is a little bit longer than Nairo's. If you had just someone who was like Plup and then it's like YouPorn Fatality, you don't want Plups to just be like bigger. I know he's not a Smash 4 player, but I wanted a small tag, and he also has the sponsor PG. Regardless, you have the player icon in that the red and blue. A lot of streams add that, and the only time I've ever liked you expressing those colors is the PAX one, where it is just to match the color that it's next to. Every other time it's like you're telling me the color, the character, and you're putting their name under it, and they probably also have a tag in game showing who they are. I know who's who. You don't need to denote it again. And again, like I was just saying, I understand that it's kind of to fill this entire little space that they want. But all of that doesn't really need to go. The logos are kind of cool. The logo for Fatality should actually be on the right side of his name, though. I think symmetry is really important when it comes to overlays, and you don't need to have the Momocon logo in the middle, and then also Momocon 2017 in the bottom left, and then telling me where Momocon is. Again, a ton of information that I'm actually okay with being put in a standby screen or in between games, and it's totally cool then. But here, it's just really not good. Also, this background, like, I don't know really what to say about this, because I almost would have preferred if it had just been like all blue or black or white or something. It just feels like it's almost trying to be like cheesy, like internet 1980. And I'm sorry, I know I'm being really harsh on this one, but I feel like this sums up like almost every problem we've seen in a lot of them, where it's you're doing too much, you're putting things that I already know and don't need to know somewhere else. You're putting information that's just not relevant, like where your event's taking place. I don't need to know. You're telling me the event name twice. Let me jump back. I think sometimes it is cool to put in the area like doing the Santa Fe, California for the 2GG events. For the very big stuff like Civil War, like, oh yeah, here in like Santa Fe sort of thing. This is not it. I don't need to know who it's being live streamed from, because I'm watching it on your YouTube or Twitch. And then that kind of messes up your whole top thing that's already taking up space. And you could have maybe like lined the sponsors on the sides, which I think probably would have been worse than what the current overlay is, but there's just not good stuff going on here. But yeah, so that's going to be it. I hope you guys really enjoyed. That was something that was actually a lot more fun than I expected it to be. And made me appreciate the really good overlays more. And realize that it's actually very hard to get things exactly right. Because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of time went into getting the aesthetic and everything being pleasing on the Frostbite overlay. Or the PAX people being like, alright, like we're going to take a risk on it just being just that. And it was really, really good. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Remember, like, subscribe, yada, yada. And I'll see you on the next video.